Welcome to the Venus Flytrap podcast. I hope I'm saying welcome back. If not, go watch the others because they're amazing and they lead into this. I'm kidding. They're all independent and you could just watch one at a time, but they're worth watching. Anyway, just in case you don't know, if you're living under a rock, I'm Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards and I'm going to be your host as usual. So, excuse me. What is this edition going to be about? Well, it's going to be about why people repeat the same relationship patterns with different people. What does taking responsibility actually look like? And what practical steps can people take to break the cycle for good? So we've got a lot to get through. Let's get started.
Tailored suit in a London rain. He built an empire to mask the pain. A self-made man with a heart and heart, watching the world from a place apart. Then she walked in like a sudden blade in the midnight heat where the shadows played. A fallen heiress with a rebel soul, ready to take back all control. She lived by no rules but her own desire, wrapping his life in a ring of fire. An international ghost of a golden age, stepping back onto the center stage. Oh, the Venus flytrap opens wide with nowhere left for the heart to hide. It's a tango of sex and a dance of lies under the gaze of those velvet skies. Love, illusion, and a slow awakening. Every vow and every promise breaking. We're addicted to the high and the crash below in a game where neither of us lets go.
Okay, so let's get started. And what I like to do is share some of the stories out of the book with you as we kick off here. So I promise you all these podcasts are going to be entertaining, empowering, and enlightening. So let's see how entertaining this story is and how empowering it can be when we actually unpack it all, and how enlightening some of the distinctions and lessons learned will be. All right, so we had just come out of a situation. We broke up again, right? And in order to get back together, I would try and get her to make commitments to, healing her stuff and stop drinking or smoking or taking whatever it would be, which of course she would agree to initially, having no intention of doing any of it, but just telling me what I needed to hear to get back together. So she'd agreed to start going to AA meetings and to go to therapy, right? We could go together, right? And we had talked to a lady who seemed amazing. We both liked her because we both thought that we could manipulate her and get her to agree with us and, get the other person to do what we wanted them to do. She was brilliant. So, of course, I would say, you need to go AA meetings. No, I don't need help. I'm perfectly in control of this. I can drink as much as I want or not. Anyway, the bottom line is we went back and forth, and finally she agreed to go to therapy together and said she would start attending AA meetings. Yeah, I know. Good luck with that. She knew exactly how to play it. Give a little, promise much, with zero intention of following through on any of it, right? So she had inherited, as I said before, her father's genius level of intelligence, and she showed it in how skillfully she manipulated situations and me. Okay, soon enough, we were back to calling each other baby and telling each other how much we were crazy about one another. If this seems predictable, it was, right? But somehow, still unbelievable. Tamaz was my drug of choice, intoxicating, irresistible, and dangerous. So she was more addictive than crack. Not that I've ever taken crack, so I can't say that with complete authority, right? Or with certainty. But if you offered me a night on crack or a night with Tamaz, I know which one I would choose. So anyway, how could I possibly forgive Tamaz so quickly? I mean, she had just tried to get me arrested, steal my home, my cars. So why didn't I at least make her wait or earn my forgiveness? Over weeks, if not months, right? Well, how many times can a fly escape a Venus flytrap? Well, I was oblivious to the danger only to keep going back again and again. So, what I say in the book, get comfortable and read on because it's going to be a while, right? So at that point in this book, which means we're about halfway through, we barely got started halfway through book one, right? But like Charles Dickens said, they were the best of times, and they were the worst of times. And they were the times of our lives, right? So Tamaz and I began searching for a therapist. We find this lady, right? Because we had numerous issues beyond her attempt to get me arrested and take my home. Arguments about drinking, smoking, and various other conflicts. At its core, it was a power struggle, right? We both wanted control, which is, again, why control can be so destructive, right? And really, what is someone doing when they want to control? They're trying to protect themselves because usually they've been raised in a controlling environment, and we both were, right? And the only way to not be controlled, which is your goal, I don't want anybody to control me. So what do you have to do? You have to control other people. You don't think of it that way, but it's true. You would say, I'm not controlling. I don't want to control anybody. Well, yes, you do, because you don't want to be controlled. So Tamaz had agreed to go to therapy with me as part of our makeup deal. Like I said, she thought, I thought she needed therapy. And of course, she thought I needed therapy. The reality was we were both right. Anyway, so we're going through this process, and we talked on the phone with a therapist we both liked, like I said, or rather we both thought, as I said, we could manipulate. The therapist was very kind, softer spoken, older lady, and she told us we needed to remain apart until she met with us. She instructed us to meet at her office at the appointed time to arrive separately. We agreed to follow through on our assignments and make our own way to our office appointment for that evening at 7 p.m. On the evening of our appointment, I drove over the Skyway Bridge in my Bentley GTC, looking sharp, excited to see Tamaz. Not especially to go to therapy, but to see Tamaz. So anyway, we agreed it was only fair to find a therapist close to where Tamaz lived, which was St. Petersburg. So as I crossed the Skyway Bridge, I got about 10 miles away from St. Petersburg, and the Bentley started sputtering. Huh? I glanced at the fuel gauge and to my horror realized I'd run out of gas. Oh, for fuck's sake. How the hell did that happen? Seemed like a fair question to ask myself. Well, you forgot to put gas in the car, you fucking idiot. I answered myself. Well, that seems about harsh, but true. Okay, so, you forgot to put gas in the car. It sounded a bit harsh, but it was true. So I pulled over or off to the side. It was a very tight, hard shoulder, so cars were whizzing past me at what I felt like breakneck speeds. They were all laughing at me, or it felt that way. Now, what do? You're right. There was no one there. I was talking to myself. We've already gone through this before. You do too, right? So the only thing I could think of was to call Tamaz. So I did. She answered, and I told her I'd run out of gas, which of course she found hilarious, but tried not to laugh, which just made it worse, right? But she was sweet. She went and got a canister and went to a gas station, filled it with gas, got in a cab, and came out to the Skyway, or it was just over the Skyway, right? And it was amazing because she came out that the taxi was this white van, so she looked like a white horse. And the irony was not lost on me, right? So the taxi driver mercifully was professional. He refrained from making the obvious jokes. Tamaz, however, couldn't resist teasing, right? So she's like, how did you not see the gas gauge was so low? So I said, well, When you're rushing to meet your girlfriend to take her to therapy and you're running late, it's quite easy to miss something. I shot back defiantly. Her eyes widened and she gave me a fierce look. As I refueled the Bentley, the humiliation of a stalled luxury car weighed on me, amplified by the curious stares of passing motorists. I got in and pressed the ignition button. Nothing. Again, still nothing. What the? I glanced at the gauge. It hadn't even moved. Then it hit me. There still wasn't enough gas in the tank to start the car. I gripped the top of the steering wheel, put my head down, and silently screamed. It was not enough to start the Bentley, another humbling lesson in opulence. However much gasoline was in the container, it was not enough to start the Bentley, another humbling experience or lesson in opulence, as I said. So I asked the cab driver, to return to the gas station, buy a 5-gallon, which is English for gallon, container. All right, and fill it up and bring it back. He kindly agreed. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere, and he was pretty sure that I wasn't going to run off and abandon the Bentley. He left Tamaz with me, thinking maybe if I did run for it, she'd slow me down. The irony? She's a really fast runner. Anyway, and you actually find that out in the book. With the roof down, the wait was surprisingly bearable despite the Florida heat. We found something to occupy us. No, not that. But once. We looked at the sky. No, really, we looked at the sky. Florida has some of the most beautiful cloud formations on Earth, right? And so we looked at them and made faces out of them and just behaved pretty pathetically, right? But it was romantic, and it was a memory that I think both of us remember for the rest of our lives. Okay, let's see here. So what happened was we were completely mesmerized by the God sound, and we were both quite an anomaly. While I was in great danger, so was Tamaz. I was at risk of losing my freedom and my home. On the other hand, Tamaz was in danger of succumbing to my love and affection, the kind she had never experienced before, nor did she believe in, or at least she refused to admit she believed in. She truly believed that she was unlovable, that men only wanted her for one thing, because that had always been her experience. So who would win this battle of light and darkness? Well, first we have to figure out which one was bringing the light and which one of us was bringing the darkness, right? You probably think you know. Maybe, but don't be so sure. The journey to find out had only just begun, and we had a long way to go. Finally, the taxi driver arrived or returned. I emptied the fresh 5-gallon container in the gas tank, and another stream of cars rushed past, some honking, others shouting obscenities. I thanked and paid the driver. He took off, heading to us, and we took off, heading to our 7 p.m. appointment with the therapist. It was nearly 8 p.m. Should we even go? Tamaz asked, her tone suggesting she'd rather skip it and grab dinner. I tried calling the therapist. There's no answer. Let me just check if she's still there, I proposed, though Tamaz seemed convinced we'd find an empty office. We arrived at the therapist's office. It looked closed. Still, I tried the doorway anyway, and it opened. It was a group of offices, in this building. So we arrived at the therapist's office, and I waved to Tamaz to come in, so she hesitantly got out of the car and followed me inside. We searched for her office number, and I knocked on the door. To our complete surprise, the door opened. "We're so sorry we're late," I said. "We thought you would have left by now." "Oh, I had to stay and finish some paperwork anyway. Come on in," she said kindly. "Is everything okay?" As we stepped inside her office, I explained what had happened. "Oh dear," she said. "That must have been very stressful." "Stephen and Tamaz, is it?" she asked as we followed her. "Yes," I confirmed. "Tamaz, that's such a pretty and unique name," the therapist said. "Thank you," Tamaz replied. "It means tomorrow. That's where I'm from. I'm from the future." Well, that's lovely. Now sit down, both of you. I'll make us some tea. She started brewing herbal tea, and suddenly it felt like we were visiting Grandma's house. Her office her office wasn't sterile or clinical. It was warm, cozy, more like a welcoming living room than a therapist's office. The entire feeling felt surreal. From the moment I drove over the Skyway Bridge, it felt like I'd stepped into another dimension. This meeting with Grandma felt like Neo's first encounter with the Oracle in the Matrix. As I said, we had spoken to her on the phone and both liked her. She'd even given us some assignments. Tamaz was supposed to attend an AA meeting every day. According to her, she had. I had completed my assignments, which I'd left at home. Or maybe the dog had eaten them. I forget which. We were also instructed to not to see each other before the session and to arrive separately. To be fair, we intended to, but circumstances had other plans. Not seeing each other before the session, that hadn't happened. Oh, and we were 1.5 hours late for our appointment. But other than that, we'd followed everything perfectly. The therapist forgave us, which was nice of her, which, if you think about it, it would have been hypocritical if she hadn't, right? I mean, that's what therapists teach, right? Forgiveness. Anyway, we listened, she listened, and we shared our stories, both talking over each other, hoping our version would be heard first and she'd take our side. By the time we were done, our tea was cold and our therapist looked confused, maybe even exhausted by the chaos, right? Well, that's all very interesting, she said finally. From what you're both telling me, it sounds like you're struggling to communicate what you want from each other, and that's causing arguments and fights. Would that be a fair initial prognosis? We both looked at each other, startled by how accurately she had detailed our chaotic ramblings. We spoke almost in sync. Yes. Then the therapist nodded. Stephen, you want Tamaz to abstain from drinking alcohol because in your opinion, she's an alcoholic. Is that correct? By Jove, I think she's got it. I knew she'd be on my side. Yes, I said confidently. Tamaz frowned. And Tamaz, you feel that you really don't have a drinking problem and Stephen is just trying to control you. Would you agree with that? Now she thought the therapist was on her side. Genius, right? That's exactly right, she said, her frown vanishing, replaced by a triumphant smile directed straight at me. Okay, well, you guys are doing great so far. That helps me a lot. As the oracle spoke, I wanted to believe this was a turning point, but doubt gnawed at me. Could Tamaz really change? Could I? Even as I nodded in agreement, part of me wondered if we were both simply too broken to fix. Now let me ask you both a very important question, she said, the answer to which will determine whether we can move forward toward an amicable outcome. We sat in silence, waiting for this all-important question. I can see you both care for each other very much. You can barely keep your hands off each other, she chuckled. It was true. We smiled at each other and held hands even tighter. So here's my question. To save your relationship and make it better, more harmonious, are you both willing to compromise your positions a little? Yes, we both said without hesitation. Okay, good. I'm happy to hear that because I'm excited to work with you both. You seem to have something special between you. You're both very strong characters, which is a blessing and a curse. She paused and then continued. You're both used to getting your own way and can be very stubborn. We exchanged glances. Yeah, she wasn't wrong. You both need to understand and accept that you can't always have it your way. Relationships are about give and take and picking your battles. She leaned in slightly. From what you've both told me, you're capable of doing that. Tamaz, you have let Stephen take the lead in certain areas. And Stephen, You let Tamaz do things her way in others, even when you don't always like what she's doing. Is that fair to say? Holy shit, this little grandma is a powerhouse. Yes, we both said, completely mesmerized by the oracle. So that brings us to the issue of alcohol. She turned to me. Stephen, what makes you think Tamaz has a problem with alcohol? So I explained the events that had led me to come to that conclusion. I didn't mention what her father had said, because that would have ended the session right there and then. The oracle nodded thoughtfully. Based on your version of that story, Stephen, that would seem like a reasonable assumption. Wouldn't you agree, Tamaz? Tamaz looked like she was about to argue, but bit her lip. I suppose so, she admitted. The oracle nodded again. Stephen, can you see how that might feel controlling to Tamaz? Yes, I can. Because I did. I was controlling. The oracle nodded. Stephen, are you prepared to look at that and change some things? Sure. Okay, Tamaz, I need to tell you why. I need you to tell me why you believe you don't have a drinking problem. Tamaz then shared her story, which was obviously bullshit. Okay, kidding. You are both doing really well here. You're beginning to listen to each other. You don't have to agree, but that is important. But the important thing is you both feel heard. The oracle was incredible, right? Now, this is where compromise comes in. Well, up until now, she'd been incredible. Stephen, this seems like a major issue for you, something you might not be able to accept. Is that true? Here comes the oracle trap. Yes, I said firmly. So you would break up with Tamaz rather than accept her drinking alcohol. Is that correct? Oh, the oracle was good. I mean, I didn't want to break up. I didn't want to make an ultimatum here. An ultimatum or ultimation. I don't know. Could be another word. Jot it down. And of course, I definitely didn't want to see or lose. I didn't want to see her go or lose Tamaz, right? Well, obviously, I don't want to lose Tamaz. At the same time, I need to see her making an effort to get this under control, I said, trying my best to compromise while still holding my ground. Okay, so Tamaz, would you be willing to make an effort to show Stephen that you're working toward having more control over your drinking? Tamaz, like me, bristled at being cornered. Well, that depends, she hedged. On what specifically? The oracle pressed. On how he expects me to show him that I'm making an effort. She needed some more clarity so she could devise ways to get out of it complying. That's a fair question, the oracle said, turning to me. Stephen, what would Tamaz need to do to prove to you that she's making a concerted effort to control her drinking? Well, she'd need to stop drinking for a month, I said, thinking, that's a big ask. But if you don't ask, then the oracle returned to Tamaz. Tamaz, are you prepared to stop drinking for a month? Tamaz hesitated, her expression flickering between defiance and vulnerability. For a moment, I saw something unguarded. Fear, maybe, or the weight of a past she couldn't escape. Then, as quickly as it disappeared, her confident mask returned. I'll reduce the amount I drink, she offered, her voice firm but distant. The oracle turned back to me, coming for a final close. Stephen, is that acceptable to you to get things to move along? In other words, take what you can get here. This is a stepping stone. Yes, I said. Pushing for more would have been futile, and honestly, it was highly unlikely Tamaz would even follow through on what she'd already agreed to anyway. But he gave me something and helped me keep some dignity. Wonderful, the oracle said. We've come so far already. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate this little victory, in fact, and the fact that you two are working through these issues. So we did a little celebration in the oracle's office. It's a powerful and funny and cute little moment in our relationship. Hi, listen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're here to make a public service announcement. If you're enjoying this conversation, which I know you are, right? Because if you say no, you probably lie about other things too, right? So if you're enjoying this, which I really do hope that you are, please take a moment to follow or hit the subscribe button and the like button so you never miss an episode. Let's get back to the conversation. So we were healed, right? No. It wasn't even really beginning. It was just an entertaining story and an entertaining experience for both of us because there was no way Tomas would ever go back there again. The reason is that, and I didn't know this until much later, that when she was put in an asylum when she was a young girl, she couldn't get out. And it was a miracle she did get out. So she knows that whatever got her in there was never healed, right? And she was terrified of ever going to therapy and being put in that asylum, which is why she would never go to therapy on a regular basis. She was afraid to be seen. And that's why she had to have distractions from reality because she couldn't live in reality. She couldn't live with herself, right? So the reason that she was addicted to alcohol and drugs and sex and anything else that she could be addicted to was because it was an escape. It was the only way she could feel alive. So sometimes we don't understand what people are going through. And I didn't understand at that point. And I was still trying to get her to heal those things, right? To stop doing those things. And it was never going to happen. And I didn't find out that until much later. But I was trying to control the issue. I was trying to rescue, save, and fix her. Because that is the pattern I'd created from being a young boy, told, you've got to save the damsel in distress. Then you got to fix her, right? You got to rescue, save her, and then fix her, right? And if you do that, she's going to love you, which is complete bullshit. What does that say? Because it's a belief, and beliefs are not true. We make them all up, right? We just make them all up. But once we believe they're true, they become true for us. So that was a pattern I had to look at in myself, right? That, as a therapist, having 20 years experience as a spiritual counselor and personal development, I wanted to fix people because it made me feel good, right? And I always believed that everybody could be fixed. Everybody could be healed. And here's the truth. No, they can't. Not only do they not want to be, they're not supposed to be. And you have to accept that. You help the people you can and let the people go who are not ready. And she was definitely not ready and may never be in this lifetime, that she's made the sacrifice for other people to go into their lives and mess it up, right? So they can see who they really are, right? So remember in the therapy session when, what did the oracle say to me? Stephen, can you see how Tomas might see that as being controlling? And what did I say? Yeah, for sure, I am, right? Big breakthrough. You can't control other people. The more you try, the more frustrating it's going to be, the more stressful it's going to be, the more destructive it's going to be on all counts, right? So these things happen during the course of this, what do we say, toxic relationship? And who was the one bringing the light? Who was the one bringing the darkness? Who was the one bringing the toxicity? And the reality is we both were. We were both playing out, acting out our dramas, our patterns, our traumas, trying to get healed, right? And we both believed that we could be healed through the other person. And the reality is the only person that could heal us is us ourselves. The only person that can heal you is you. And the first step to that healing is, number one, awareness. You've heard me say many, many times. And then the second thing is finding the patterns. Why is this happening? It's not happening to you. It's happening for you. Finding the gifts in these experiences. And that is revolutionary, right? It's a revolution in your life. What does revolution mean? It means a returning to the point that you started. And when you're a child, you didn't come into this world with any of these traumas, with any of these issues. You created them so you could heal them and experience more of who you really are. And we'll get into the details of why all those things happen later on. So, in order to come to those realizations, see with your real eyes, which are your feelings, not these eyes will deceive you. Your feelings are how we see the world. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't trust my feelings because they can take me in the wrong direction. That's true, but your brain's going to take you in a lot worse direction. And you can check in with your feelings and determine whether they are really taking you in the right direction or not. Is your intuition guiding you the right way or the wrong way? Well, first of all, we've got to establish, is it your intuition or is it your fear? You see, people say, well, God told me to do this. That God told me to pick up a rifle and go down to the local school and blow kids away. No, God did not tell you that. Your ego told you that. Your pain told you that. Your fear told you that. Your feeling of alone, your feeling of resentment, you feel that society's turned its back on you, told you to do that. So how you know if your intuition is communicating with you or whether it's your ego is what I'm hearing based in fear or is it based in love? If it's fear, it's not your intuition. It's definitely not God, right? If it's in love, then how could it be wrong, right? If it's a love-based thought, how could it be wrong? And I will tell you now, you could argue with me up and down. I know God. I have a personal relationship with what you might call God. And I call God sometimes. Sometimes that's the universe. Sometimes it's Brian. That force that flows through everything doesn't care what you call it. It just cares that you call, right? So God's never going to tell you what to do. Never, never, ever tell you what to do. Did you hear that? Wow. Who the hell are you to tell me that? I'm me. Because if God was going to tell you what to do, why doesn't just God tell you what to do all the time? God is going to help you make your own choice because you have free will. God will ask you questions to help you come to a clear decision, but it will be your decision. God's not going to take that much responsibility for you. That's why you were given the freedom of choice. So you choose your life. If God chose it all for you, whose fault is it if it doesn't go right? It's God's fault. But then you'll take all of the praise. Or you say, oh, all praise to God because we won the game. God could care less whether you win the game. And God isn't going to pick your side in a game. God is not going to pick your religion. God loves us all equally. So you're not going to get God's, God's not going to be on your side because you're a Christian. God's not going to be on your side because you're a Muslim. It's ridiculous. It's never going to happen, right? It's nonsense, right? God is going to love you. God is always going to be there for you. Whether you win the game or lose the game makes no difference. But God is not going to cause you to win a game or control your world because you pray to God. It's never going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. Now, you can pray for healing. And you can pray for healing for somebody else. And it can have an effect on the consciousness. For sure. I've seen it. But in terms of, having will over other people, no. Having will over whether you're going to win the game, no. If you want to win that game, you got to work your ass off as an athlete. You got to be the best athlete you could be. So after the game, and praise God, is a show. It's your ego showing other people, I believe in God. My faith is the right faith. People can see it. Everybody sees it. You're not fooling anybody. When you believe in God, you don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to prove it. You just know. And people say, well, prove it. I have no proof for you. I just know because I've had that experience and I have a knowing. God is never going to appear to anybody unless they're looking, because God is everything. God is waving at you when the tree blows in the wind and the blades of grass flow. God is ever present, omnipresent, right? And when you're going through these experiences, as hard as they might be, God's right there. God is the watcher, the seer, just watches and sees everything, right? You're the one going through the experience, so God can experience God's self through you and the multitude of others in this world and the universe. It's pretty cool, huh? So be with that. Be with yourself. Accept yourself. And one of the other things I talked about before, and I said I would mention last time, is vulnerability. If God sees everything, you got nothing to hide. But we think we do. You know, when I was a kid and I went through the things that I've talked about in the book, I didn't want anybody to know. I was ashamed, right? Some of you going, you should be, right? So I was ashamed of all those things. Never told anybody about me being in the asylum, about the kids teasing me about having a small dick, right? Feeling ashamed of things that happened and buried it. But it's never really buried. It's there. The energy, the humiliation, the fear, resentment, the anger, it's all there in the cells of your body until you release it, until you heal it. And you see those negative feelings, which they are, low vibrational energy held up in your being. It's slowing your vibration down, so you can't live a full life. You can't live a full expression until you release it. And then when you release it and you let go of that energy, how do you feel? You feel lighter, right? Until one day, you're enlightened. It's a beautiful story, right? Is it true? I have no idea, but it's what I believe. And it works for me. It gives me happiness, a sense of fulfillment that I don't need to get from the external world because it ain't there. You've heard it a million times. You've got to, it's all within you. And you go, yeah, it's bullshit. It's true, right? But people still keep trying to get it on the outside. Once I get that Hermes bag for 50 grand, I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. No, you're not. Maybe for a few weeks, maybe a few months, maybe it's worth it. I don't know. But it's not going to fulfill you. It's not going to make you happy long term. You know that because in a few months, Hermes is going to come out with a $150,000 bag. And you got to have that one. Because if you don't, well, you're worthless. You're not good enough. It's just another reinforcement of the fact that you're not good enough. You're not good enough to have the $150,000 Hermes bag. You're only good enough to have the $50,000 one. How does that feel? Man, you're such a loser. Or the Lamborghini. Or the Bugatti. There's always something bigger and better once you start relying on the material world for your happiness. How do I know? Because I had it happen, didn't I? And it's a never-ending, exhausting lifestyle. It's never enough. It'll never be enough. Doesn't mean you can't have those things, but don't be attached to them for your identity or your happiness. You have them, you have them. They're nice, enjoy them. Nothing wrong with enjoying nice things. But they're not the source of happiness. You can drive that Lamborghini in your head, in your imagination, in your imagination. You can imagine yourself driving it. And the brain cannot tell the difference between something vividly imagined and something that actually happened. Do you ever watch a movie? Does it seem real? Do you get scared? Do you feel it? Sure, it's not real. It's a movie. And you can create movies in your mind. That's where they begin. They begin in the mind, in the imagination, right? So you got to imagine yourself not being in a toxic relationship, right? You got to imagine yourself being with the love of your life. You've got to feel those feelings. Be that person By the way, if you're going to imagine a car that you want, people say, I imagine it. I've got pictures of it all over my room, and I sit and I meditate on this car or whatever it is, right? And you go, yeah, but you forgot to put yourself in it. Right? You got to be in it. You got to see yourself. An athlete can never perform any physical feat without first seeing themselves accomplishing that physical feat. So you got to start to use the gifts you've been given to create the life of your dreams. We all live in a dream. The question is, whose dream are you living in? And some people are living the life of their nightmares because they keep thinking in negative things. What can happen? What if this happens? What if that happens? I hope that doesn't happen. It's the same thing. The brain cannot register a negative. It registers what you see. If I say to you, whatever you do, don't think of a blue door, what are you thinking about? A blue door. I told you not to think of a blue door, because to not think of a blue door, you have to think of a blue door. Huh? You know what I mean. All right? So start to take control of your mind. Begin with the end in mind. See it the way you want it to see it. Feel it. The more you immerse yourself in that vision with emotion, the feeling of what it will be like in that moment, driving that car with the roof down, the wind in your hair, and the speed and the power. God, it feels good, doesn't it? But hopefully you will become more conscious of where happiness really is, and it's not in the material world. I just use the material world as an example. I've had these dreams. I've had the cars. I wanted a Rolls Royce. I wanted a Bentley. I got them. I wanted the mansion. I got them. I wanted a sex room. I got it. And all of it did. I wanted the beautiful supermodel. I got her. Well, maybe she got me, or maybe both. But I had it all. And I lost it all. And then I got it back again. And then I lost it again. And I realized a lot of things. I learned so much about the temporary nature of reality. You know, the Buddhists have a beautiful practice where they create these sand mandalas, right? And they make them with a straw and all these different colors of sand, and all the monks are building this, and it's just so beautiful. It's breathtaking. You want to cry when you see it. It's so beautiful. And then when they're done, they just scrape all the sand up and put it in a pile in the middle, and they wrap it all up, and they take it to the river, and they throw it in the river. It's the impermanence of everything. And a reminder not to become attached to anything, however beautiful it is. Everything is temporary. And so you need to be happy and be fulfilled, to not be attached to the material world, because it will come and it will go, just as you will come and go. You know, there's the famous quote from the Bible, right? It is more difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to slip through the eye of a needle. It's all about attachment. You see, the camel can't fit through the eye of a needle because of its humps. It's attached to its humps. And very often a rich man cannot enter the kingdom of heaven because he's attached to his material things. So we've got to let go of those things. Yeah, even your partner, you got to be unattached to them. You got to love them. But they're going to come and go. And one of you is going to go first no matter what happens, right? And you never know until the end. So when we go through these experiences, if it's a toxic relationship, there are so many lessons in there if we will just look. But we've got to look at ourselves. We got to look at what we're bringing to the table. We got to look at where we're not valuing ourselves, where we're giving ourselves away in a relationship, and we're letting people treat us in the way that we would never treat anybody else. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. Most people forget that part, right? You've got to take care of yourself. So attachment shows up in so many different areas of our lives. But the more we're attached to things, the more we become controlling. because we want to control those things that we're attached to. We want to control other people's access to them. We want to control the thing we're attached to. If it's a person, right? Because if we can control them, we can control whether they will leave us or whether they'll stay. And so it just reinforces the attachment. So attachment is a very important part of the process. We're not even realizing it. We're attached to a certain image that we have of ourselves or that other people have. What are people going to say? How are they going to think about us? All those things. And we become attached to those things. So attachment shows up in so many different places in our lives. So how do we let go of attachment? Well, there are many different ways to do that. How do we let go of attachment to people, or how do we let go of control? Well, one of the ways to do that we talked about at the beginning is being vulnerable. We've got to be, vulnerability is not a weakness. And a lot of people think that, especially men, right? Because if we're vulnerable, then we are appearing to letting our wall down, that it's weak, that women are not going to look up to us, they're not going to feel safe around us if we're vulnerable. And it's not true. Like I said, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a power. How so? Well, if you are vulnerable with your partner, now, I was very vulnerable with the book, right? I brought stuff out there that I never told anybody in my life, right? Because I was trying to make a point. If I can be vulnerable, then so can you. I was trying to give permission for other people to be vulnerable. Because what I realized is that when you're vulnerable, it gives you freedom too. Because if you share these things that you've been ashamed of, that you've never talked about in your life, and you bring it out, then nobody has that power over you anymore. There's nothing you said there's nothing other people can say that you haven't said about yourself. And so you can't be held, you can't be extorted by that, right? Can't have people say, well, if you do this, I'm going to tell everybody about that. I already told them, So it gives you a freedom, and it gives you a freedom to be authentic. She talked about vulnerability and authenticity. They're so closely tied, right? If you can't be vulnerable, you're probably not going to be authentic, right? You're going to hold back. If you can't share these things. Now, obviously, talk about being vulnerable and sharing your deepest, darkest thoughts and maybe sexual desires and all that stuff. It's not something you want to do on the first date. I get it. But if you're going to really decide, and you've decided that you want to get into a serious relationship with somebody, perhaps even spend the rest of your life with them, then you definitely have to become vulnerable before you make that commitment. It's like making your vows, right? Why? Well, because if you don't, you're always going to be worried throughout that relationship, throughout your marriage, that those things are in some way going to come out. Your partner's going to find out about them. And then you're going to be worried, well, what will they think of me then? Will they still love me? What if they don't? Well, when do you want to find that out? At the beginning or the end? And you see, if you don't find it out at the beginning, it'll destroy your relationship anyway, because you won't be able to love them fully. It's impossible, because you're always going to be thinking in the back of your mind, what if I love them and I give them all my love, and then they just take theirs away because they find these things out about me? Now, the challenge is, of course, is that they could use it against you. I know. And that's scary, right? And so you're thinking, I can't tell them that because, first of all, they might tell somebody else. Or first of all, they might not want to be with me anymore, right? So there's all these things going on in your mind that cause you to be afraid. Now, could they use these things against you? Sure. It's a risk, right? But it's a leap of faith, isn't it? And here's the thing. If they do betray that trust that you put in them when you've shared these deep, dark parts of yourself, then they weren't the right person, were they? You were probably right not to trust them, but now you know for sure. And like I said, when would you rather know that, at the beginning or the end? Would you rather live in uncertainty, a fear of it coming out, and not be able to love fully? Not them know who you really are and the things that you've done, and they can let go of that and say, hey, that was the past. What I care about is who you are today. And that's really what's important, isn't it? Not start making a list of all the weaknesses you have, all the things they can hold against you, because it happens, right? And you know that to begin with rather than the end. And if they don't betray your trust, now you've got a deeper trust. And you see, people think that You find intimacy in the bedroom. That's not where you find intimacy. Intimacy is by being vulnerable, trusting someone, your partner, right? With things that have been secrets you've held back, things you've been ashamed of, and you've let them know about those things, and they say, I love you anyway. And that builds a trust that you just can't get any other way. And when you have that kind of trust and you get in the bedroom, now you've got two people who are open, not just to their vulnerability about what's happened in the past, they're open fully sexually to you because they trust you at a level they could never have trusted you without you being vulnerable. And now that you've been vulnerable, you shared these things, and then you can be authentic. They're inextricably connected. So, these are all things that we all need to work on. Nobody's at the end of the journey. Everybody's working on it. I know that through this experience with Tamaz, for which I'm truly grateful, I'm better than I was before. I've healed so much because of her, and I'm truly blessed that she came into my life, and I'm grateful for all the lessons that I've learned because of her. Now, that sounds like, oh, is he thinking of going back? No, I'm not going to go back. I can still love her from afar. I can still appreciate everything she did. I can still be grateful without being in a relationship with her, which would just repeat the same pattern. I had to let go of attachment to her, and I was attached to her in a big way. She was my heroine, and I had awful withdrawal symptoms letting her go. But I got past it. As hard as it was, I got past it. And once I got past that addiction part, then I could begin the healing process. So look, you don't have to rush this. You got to take it easy, because if not, you'll relapse. And that's what many people do with addictions, right? They relapse because it becomes overwhelming. So when you're getting out of a toxic relationship, you have to be patient with yourself. First of all, you got to do the healing part. And it's kind of like grief, right? There's no set amount of time. But the way you do that, though, the way that I did it and the way I recommend, is to pull the pieces back that you gave away. The things that you stopped doing. Maybe you stopped hanging out with your girlfriends or your guy friends. And maybe those relationships may never be the same as a result of what they learned about what you did and how they feel you treated them. It can happen that some relationships just sometimes are not fixable, like I said earlier. But you got to build up friendships again if that's the case. And sometimes it's easier because they don't know what's happened, right? They don't know what you did in the past, and so they're seeing you from who you are today. Maybe that's easier because some people hold you in those old patterns, right? They expect you to do the same thing again, which actually makes it easier to do it again, right? Because they expect it anyway, right? But however you do it, rebuild the things that made you the person you are. Whether it's your friendship, closeness with your family, things that you used to do for charities that maybe you stopped doing, stop going to the gym, stop reading, whatever they were, you know what they are, and they're different for everybody. Maybe you stopped meditating. Maybe you didn't meditate. Maybe you should. But I'm just saying, pull the pieces back. Build your esteem back up, right? Start putting the pieces of who you really are back together. It's not a rush, it's not a race. Be gentle, because you've been through a tough experience. It's been draining. It's probably exhausting. And time is a great healer. But when you're ready, when it's time, then start to look at what were the lessons in it for you? What were the mirrors there for you? What was this soul, this precious soul that came into your life, lowered thy vibration to such an extent they were mean to you, hurtful to you, did abusive things for you? To recognition, what you've left behind, what you've given away, what you've judged about yourself. What aspects of yourself haven't you stepped into, owned? What things have you been judging? Because those things you're judging others are things you're judging yourself. It's a process. It's a journey. So you begin it and you put these pieces back one piece at a time, and you work on these patterns one at a time. And little by slow, you're going to build yourself back up. You're going to build your confidence. You're going to do your PSI. You're going to do your daily dare. You're going to meditate each day. You do these rituals, right? These rituals are reminding you of who you are. You're putting yourself first. You're making yourself important because you are, unless you're not. We teach the world how to treat us, ladies and gentlemen. So teach the world how you deserve to be treated, what your expectations are. You'll learn to set boundaries. There's a lot of skills in this, right? There's a lot of skills in being a person, right? But you can do it because you're worth it. How do I know? Well, it's a rumor. It's a rumor, right? We're all worth it. We all come from the same place. We all go back to the same place. We're all loved unconditionally. The only people who have conditions are ourselves. And we create the conditions of love and what it takes to be loved. And if we don't believe we're lovable, we won't be. If we don't make ourselves lovable, we don't make ourselves who we really are, then we're unlovable. And we'll pay the price. You know, so talk about unconditional love. Well, there's no such thing. Love has conditions. Certain conditions inside of you have to be in place for you to feel love. Even if someone's loving you, even if God is loving you and sending you messages of love, you can't feel it unless you believe it. You can't feel it unless you create the conditions of love inside you. Love loves you. See what I just said? Love loves you, whether you believe it or not. But if you don't believe it, you never feel it. So the conditions of love are inside of you. They're up to you so that you can experience it fully and be who you really are. Okay, well, that's a lot to take in, I know, for one session. Got to think about how the events of our lives, the circumstances, are not happening to us. Tawaz never did anything to me. She did it for me, and I will always love her for that, even though she's not in my life and won't be in my life. I can love her from afar. And you can appreciate the people that have done things what used to be in your mind to you. You realize now they did it for you. It doesn't mean you bring them back in your life. It doesn't mean you allow that to happen ever again. In fact, it means the opposite. So, as we finish out here, my hope that you did find that entertaining. You were able to laugh at me a little bit, right? And my journey. And you found it empowering for you, that you feel more powerful. And there are things that you now know how to do, how to also feel more powerful. And there were things that you got out of this that were enlightening. So we will see each other soon. Until then, Sapere Ord.
Let's go. Spiritual sparkle in a world of gray, finding the truth in the disarray. It's a raw confession of a life lived fast, breaking the chains of a heavy past, from the erotic spirit to the soul's rebirth, finding what a human life is really worth. Sex, lies, and the repercussions stay as we dance the final act away. Just a true story of a love so deep, promises that we could never keep. In the garden of the trap we lay, waiting for the break of a